Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Peter Davis, managing partner of Interplay. I'm on a mission to advance society, and this podcast is definitively part of that effort. All right, welcome back. This is our first podcast of new season. End of the summer. We had a break. I'm very excited about today's pod. We've got Patrick Butler, CEO of BizDefender on. Patrick is a serial founder with a ton of experience. He's technical, brilliant, and just knows what he's doing. He has partnered up with Interplay to launch a company. Now, not something we talk about too much, not that it's a secret, is we have something we call a foundry, which is more commonly referred to as a studio. I like the word foundry because we kind of co-found the companies, and it kind of has that metal thing too, where you're like making things. So I like that imagery. And we start, call it 5 companies a year, around a particular thesis. Our thesis, which we don't talk too much about publicly, not that it's a secret, it just doesn't come up, is that we think society has a bunch of holes. And whenever we find a social problem that we can solve with a sustainable for-profit solution, we go into tinker mode to see if we can build a company around it and solve it, create some social value, and create a business at the same time. And BizDefender, Patrick's company, is just that. They are tackling the huge epidemic of fraud where people are stealing money from small businesses around the country. It's a huge problem. There's not a good fix until now. So with that, please meet Patrick and get the scoop. Patrick, welcome, man.
I'm super stoked to be here.
I mean, this is kind of a big month for you.
It is. Big week, big month.
You've done a lot of work and a little crescendo. Let's jump in so people know what the hell we're talking about.
Sure.
Can we start at the top? Like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And I think in this particular case, it's kind of invisible in plain sight for everybody. So,
business fraud. It's diverse. It's expensive to mitigate. And it's complicated, increasingly complicated. And small and medium businesses don't have the money or time or resources to properly prevent themselves. So we fill that void.
What is business fraud?
Business fraud.
It sounds like we all know what that is, but brass tacks, what's happening?
Money is, or value is lost or gained by means that you don't expect, by either a bad actor or sloppiness. So it's a very, very broad term for mismanaged money and cash flow and value. So
okay, but people are getting robbed.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
What are the like the top 3, 1 to 3 kind of tricks that the crooks are playing to steal from small businesses?
Sure. Number 1 is your old-fashioned hacking. So you imagine network penetration, password guessing, DDoS, all the stuff that you see in the movies, and that's kind of an arms race
and they're like logging into someone's bank account and wiring the money
precisely,
out?
yeah.
Okay.
Or logging into payroll, whatever it is. That's there's more and more bigger and bigger digital footprint online. So you have more data, more accounts, more passwords, things like that exposed. So that's kind of category 1. Category 2, I'll call tech-enabled social engineering. And this is made possible by the acceleration in tech. If you think about COVID, how much convenience was made available to us while we were all in quarantine so that we could work. And all these new tools are great, but the technology is advancing faster than the mitigation for the risk that this stuff imposes. So an example is somebody doesn't have to necessarily hack into your account. They can get some data that you might not think is sensitive. They get your employee list. They get the network of how people interact with each other. My own co-founder at my last startup was sent an email to his personal account spoofed from our CFO that said it's okay to let that transaction through to Chase. And that was our accounts. They knew that we knew the bank. They knew the person to send it from. And without a lot of technical savvy, we're able to almost convince him to a $25,000 transaction.
Okay, so story 1 is they log in, they steal it. That's pretty easy to understand. 2 is they get enough hidden profile data on you on the dark web,
mm-hmm.
and then they impersonate someone to create some sort of behavior that where unwittingly someone on the team does something that hurts the company.
Correct. And then the third is a broad category that has begun to be named brand spoofing and identity theft. This is it is completely legal to start a business that kind of looks like somebody else's, kind of resembles it to the human eye or ear, might be able to easily pass for it, and can impersonate you to do any number of nefarious things in what is kind of, I think somebody's calling clean fraud, which is kind of a funny word, but that is a brand new kind of category and topic for fraud, and particularly small businesses that aren't spending the time to go out and scour the internet for these kinds of threats.
This is the way I've been describing this example to friends is someone legally creates a Delaware entity called Interplays, same name as our firm, plus an S, creates a legal bank account at Chase. And they did all this because they know that they deliver our mail or some other thing, and they can intercept the check.
Yep.
They take the check, they deposit it at Chase. Chase clears it because they think it's a typo.
Yep.
And they wire the money to God knows where 8 minutes later.
Precisely. And if you think about all of the new points of failure that have surfaced with all of the technology that has advanced during COVID, you take out your phone, you could deposit a mobile check by taking a picture of it. You go to a teller, you get them on an off day where they're misreading your typo. There's a lot of weaknesses that have nothing to do with your business.
Yeah.
And it's you're at threat just because you have to interface with the system.
I feel for banks. I did a panel interview or like a fireside where I was the moderator, the interviewer, about 1.5 years ago. And the person running it was the CTO of a pretty large regional commercial bank. And I asked him, because I'm always doing these things with my own curiosity. I'm like, what percentage of your budget is set aside for fraud? Like, not preventing fraud. What do you expect to lose from every dollar you make? What percentage do you expect to lose? And he kind of squirmed a little bit and eventually told me that it was 1 penny for every dollar. So 1% of their entire revenue is going to be stolen.
Yep, that tracks.
And that's standard.
And that tracks. That's with what he can get away with paying. I think it could be as high as 5% of all revenue is actually affected. And this is the stuff that's caught, and mitigated and sent back. You said you feel for banks. It's not everybody has that sentiment. They said banks should be taking care of us, but what are you supposed to do in these situations? Everybody's kind of acting for themselves. It's financially advantageous for them to stick to their guns and just put aside a budget. 1%, 1 cent is not terrible in the grand scheme of things if it's actually 5. It's the business owners that bear the brunt of this in particular.
And, as a customer of banks, like I find it, the fraud prevention, which they probably have to do given that context, infuriating. Any wire, they got to call me 3 times just to get it out. They're just trying to pass the risk over. All right. So if they're losing 1 to 5% of their revenue, how many companies are being hit with this? Like how many companies are being affected, and who's the profile of company that's getting targeted for this stuff?
So we talked about the bank side. Let's talk about it from the consumer, the business side. If you survey companies, 60% have self-identified as a victim of some kind of business fraud in the last 2 years. These are people that have self-identified, not even people that maybe missed something. So I'd say the majority. The median loss in brand and legal and cost is as much as some estimates are $200,000 a transaction. That would cripple the vast majority of the 33 million small businesses in the U.S. and potentially bankrupt them.
This is a small business problem.
It is. It's a big business problem.
It affects everybody, but this is...
Yes, big businesses can afford and typically do bring a lot of the mitigation in-house, and they have controls and processes that go well beyond what the average small business could even dream of. Yes, but it's a small business problem more than anything else. In fact, there is data to support that the average large business fraudulent transaction is only half of that of small business. So they're typically more well protected as it is.
I think there's a pretty good argument for criminals too. If you're going to go after this, you go after the small businesses, they don't have the resources to chase after you later. All right, so you've got the bad guys out there. They are literally hacking into accounts, they're impersonating employees, and they're impersonating companies, right? In all different sorts of ways.
Mhm.
What are you proposing to do about it?
To start, the only solutions that exist in business fraud, and there are plenty of really elegant solutions, are complicated, they're expensive, they require a lot of data to train, and these are good for the medium to large businesses. To start, something simple, easy, not time consuming, doesn't take a lot of resources, and certainly not expensive. So I propose, and we're launching with a free tier, a product called BizDefender that will allow you to monitor your business. It'll look a lot like, if you're familiar with an individual identity theft product, it'll look a lot like that. We'll tell you about what's on the dark web, what to do with it, monitor your credit, tell you when you're susceptible to phishing attacks, all this for free. And what was previously unavailable is what we're going to have in our paid tier, where we are offering educated or informed advice on top of that layer, human support to help you navigate what are you supposed to do with this if something happens. And I think the key thing, which is how to navigate bureaucratic red tape where previously there was no monitoring at all.
Right. And I know behind the scenes, there are some solutions and tools out there, but they're not kind of consumer friendly. And you guys have plugged into them, simplified them. So now it's just someone signs up, creates an account, swipes their credit card, and even the free version, they can see all of the stuff on the dark web about their company. They get notified if someone's creating a fake company with a similar name kind of thing over time.
Correct.
And then there's ways to level up and get more remediation.
Yes.
The service.
We want to start a relationship with these businesses. And I think it's not just, we don't want to launch for free just to launch for free. We actually think it's good for people in general. It's good for the society for people to have these tools.
Yeah, this needs to be solved.
We can do it, so we will do it. But we'd like to build a relationship with people. We'd love for people to come in, use the free tools, talk to us, tell us what kind of problems they have. It's a very solitary thing to be struck by business fraud. There isn't a support group. And we could potentially be the landing pad for that. So we're really excited to get to start talking to businesses that might previously neglected or not have the time to think about this.
Okay. The platform's live, tools available to people?
It is.
Okay. How can listeners help or get involved? Are you hiring? What can people do other than, if you're a small business, you hear this and you want to check it out, cool. Is there other dimension for folks?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, certainly go above beyond just using the product as a small business. We're exploring all kinds of interesting partnerships and affiliates. If you have a lot of clients, talking to a legal firm that wants to recommend this to their all of their clients. We have lots of packages and products that we're packaging up specifically for those audiences. So there's plenty of opportunity to reach out right on the website. But I think the most exciting thing is to get involved if you want to help build this. This is a technical problem, but it's also very much a people problem and an anthropological problem. And we're looking for smart people that may not be round pegs filling in round holes. So I would strongly suggest we're at a very special time in the company where I'm willing to go and read every single application myself and digest it. I was not afforded that luxury in every single application I've ever done in my life. So I feel like I owe that to people. So go to our jobs page. I have a lot of content I write about my ethos and what I believe makes a successful company and product. And if it sounds interesting, reach out, even if it doesn't seem like the poster a fit.
Awesome. I want to take this a different direction now. We've kind of covered BizDefender. Couple different things I want to hit. First, a really random but fascinating anecdote. You are somehow one of the founders of a Paris-based American football team. So like
Yes.
football with tackling.
Yes.
How the hell did that happen?
I
didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't really until I was lucky enough to get involved. I spent 8 years with my last company, Talent Inc. We had a great run of growth and a healthy exit. My wife was switching careers. We had our second kid. I took a little time off. And I think I kind of overcorrected on the very next thing I was going to do 3 or 4 years ago. I connected with an old friend who pitched me this, and I said, well, I have to hear the pitch. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. This is American football played in Europe. And so one thing led to another, and I kept asking questions and realized that there's a lot of overlap between tech startups in New York City and football teams in Paris. Ultimately, you're trying to get people aligned on a mission, understanding your KPI, your metrics for success, and marching in lockstep towards that. And it's a little bit harder across the ocean in a different language, but there's a lot that's in common. And I just kept finding reasons to say no, and they never came up. And I was roped in and helped found this team. And here we are a few years later, and we're making a playoff run.
What's the name of the team?
We're the Paris Musketeers, Les Mousquetaires de Paris.
Okay, right on. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So you're a serial founder. You've had a lot of success, right? You've done a number of labs here. I know that about you. You partnered up with Interplay to build your next go, BizDefender, right? I think there's a lot of successful founders out there that are trying to find their next move and are stuck debating whether or not it makes sense to work with a studio format or not. Why did you choose to partner with a studio versus just starting something on your own? You didn't need a studio. You've done this before.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it brings me a lot of joy to kind of make this realization and say it out loud. But until you go through the entire life cycle of being a successful founder, I don't think you appreciate what success is. People hear these stories of the 1 in a million. Mark Zuckerberg carved out a certain amount of equity for himself at Facebook. And that's what you're supposed to do, is mind your own personal equity. Once you've been through this once, you realize that the easiest way to grow your own success, whatever that means, money, relationships, saving the world, whatever floats your boat is in terms of success, the easiest way to do that is to grow the pie rather than your individual piece. And to me, it's a no-brainer to fast forward a year of hard work. This is another thing that you guys laid in front of me, most studios, that certain amount of tools and connections and frameworks and vetting that saved me an entire year. And I've been through this very recently with the football team. That first year is the highest of highs and lowest lows. If I'm not going to burn out, I'm going to need that energy to focus going forward. So I'm finding myself already, not even 6 months into this, more productive with a third of the time I probably spent on working in my 20s. And I think this is the best shot I have to be sustainable. I mean, this is going to be a 5-10 year engagement if it goes really well. And I need some people in the foxhole to keep me motivated, keep me interested, and not burn out. Those are the big reasons for me.
So there are a number of other studios out there, a lot of great ones, to be candid. Studios tend to have, venture funds. Everyone is, with some small variance, doing similar things. They use the same legal docs. They focus on similar sectors when they're within the same framework. Studios, you meet one studio, right? Everything is more or less bespoke in terms of process, operation, even what they're building. Why'd you decide to partner with us?
I think it was two things. One, and I don't know if I've shared this with you yet, but the reason I found you guys in the first place was I was working with an executive coach who tasked me one week while I was trying to figure out what to do with my life and my purpose and what kind of jobs to look for. Said, go out and apply to 3 jobs this week. And I know why she did it. It's so you get your personal brand in order and your LinkedIn and all that. It just makes you try something to see how it feels. And I found a job post that was written by you guys that spoke to me, and I applied to it in those 3. And it was low stakes, and I can say that now because I didn't care. It was supposed to be. It was a homework assignment, and the first interview I took with you, low stakes. We were just talking, and all the way from the very first job description, how you pitched the company, the opportunity. I saw 5 years in the future. There was no, it'd be really nice to be doing this right now. It seemed like such a natural fit. But I think second, I've always felt a little alone in the world when there's so many interesting, sexy endeavors to go on. You whether it's like, it's crypto or quantum computing or, biotech or flying to Mars. It's like there's a million of these really interesting, sexy problems out there that people gravitate towards. It makes for very crowded space. It makes for, and good, competition breeds innovation. I've always found it more interesting and more engaging for myself to look just below the surface, where you're using technology to do something that hasn't been done, isn't a crowded space. You're doing something really, really amazing with a bunch of different disciplines, be it marketing or people or hiring, and not just building the fastest computer chip to take you to the moon. I've always felt that, and I felt a little out of place, and in ways to talk about it from the very first job description all the way up until we talked, and you guys we came to an agreement. You guys champion that. You're unabashedly. You're into it for, it's a pragmatic. Does it make sense? Is it good people? Is it good for the world? Good. Let's go. So this idea of like picking a studio that has a thesis, we're only in green energy or in crypto or this or that, never really felt natural. I think talking about how you're solving the problem is a much better fit for me. And so I thought Interplay was a slam dunk.
Beautiful. I just wanted to thank you before we sign off here. I do believe small business fraud, as unsexy as that might be to the average person out there, is actually a real problem, and it shouldn't be part of our world. And so just wanted to thank you for taking up this mantle, because this is going to be a hard go, but someone's got to sweep this up. This needs to be cleaned up.
I'm very excited and hungry, ready to go.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Mark.
That was really fun. Patrick, if you're listening to this, thank you for being on and doing this. Appreciate you carrying this torch. I think this is bigger than us starting a company. This is about helping a lot of small business owners that are underserved and ignored. I think it's going to be a really cool product. If you're out there and you're a small business, check it out, BizDefender.com. If you're thinking about getting involved with the team, this is a cool one. We think it's going to be very big. Hit us up if you're interested.